everyone, it's Clarice, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Host by Stephanie Meyer. In this book, the Earth has been invaded. The aliens in this book, called souls, are aliens that are capable of taking over host bodies. And it is through these means that they have taken over the Earth. They've just invaded all the human bodies, and at this point, the human race is pretty much extinct. This follows the story of a soul named Wanderer. Wanderer is put into the body of the human Melanie, though instead of simply being able to just completely take over this body immediately, Melanie, the human who owns this body, instead fights back. Time passes and she still refuses to give up her body completely, refuses to let her voice fade away. It's a story about Wanderer, about Melanie, about the last remaining humans on Earth, and just a story about humanity in general. I had relatively high expectations going into this book. Not abnormally high expectations, though from what I've heard, most of the people that I knew of actually really enjoyed this book. And for the most part, I did enjoy this book. Throughout this book, we are slowly introduced to the alien culture of the souls, which I think for me was the most interesting part. It told us about the souls themselves, as well as the previous host planets that they've been on, and about their history. And I always find things like that really interesting, so that was definitely my favorite part of the book. And another thing I enjoyed about this book is that even though it was over 600 pages long, it didn't really feel like that, which is something I definitely remember from my experience of reading Twilight books. Even though those books were massive, I flew through them, and this book was no different. Despite that, there were a few things that I disliked. I actually liked Melanie and Wanderer for the most part, and did find myself growing somewhat attached to them, though the other characters I didn't really care for. Maybe Jamie, but the other characters, like Jared, for example. I didn't care about Jared at all. The other characters I was just pretty indifferent about. So overall, while I did like some of the characters definitely weren't my favorite part. And even though I did like Melanie and Wanderer, there were definitely times when they, along with some of the other characters, would do something really stupid. And it's not like I expect characters to always make the best decisions. But even when characters make mistakes, I don't always get frustrated. But in this book, there were definitely times when I did, because some of the actions just weren't consistent with my idea of what the character would do, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but in this book, there were times when it was. The romance, surprisingly, I didn't completely hate. Like, I'm okay with romance in my books, but for the most part, I'm not going to want to read a book that's primarily just about the romance. And because of that, I feel like when there is romance in my books, I'm kind of more picky about it. Even though this book is classified as sci-fi romance, I really did feel that the romance is secondary to the main story. It didn't take over or overshadow things where it was unnecessary. Sure, it was kind of cheesy at times. I didn't love the romance in this book, but I appreciated that was done in moderation. While I wasn't necessarily predicting a lot of the things that happened in this book, I never felt that this book surprised me in any way. Oftentimes, because of that, especially in the beginning part of the book, it kind of made the book drag. But again, nothing really surprised me, and the same goes with the ending. You know, sometimes when books have endings that are too happy and too perfect, this book kind of made me feel that way about its ending. It was a safe ending, which isn't always a bad thing, but it definitely, for me at least, wasn't a good thing. In terms of the themes of this book, it actually asks, I think, a lot of important questions about morality, about what may be considered as right or wrong, and about just humanity in general. At times, like the romance, it was kind of cheesy. And it was in those times that I was reminded that I was reading a book. And when you're reading a book, you don't really want to feel like you're reading a book. You don't want to be taken out of that. But it was also surprisingly at times very poignant. Is that how you pronounce that word? So overall, I like this book. I did have some problems with it, and it wasn't my favorite. but I did enjoy it. It was a fun book to just fly through, which was something that I expect from Stephanie Meyer at this point. I wouldn't necessarily go around recommending it, but if based on my review and the things that I liked and disliked, you think that you're going to like it, then by all means, go ahead and read it. So that was my review of The Host by Stephanie Meyer. If you have read this book or have thoughts on this book that you'd like to share, I would love to hear about them in the comments. Anyway, please like this video if you liked it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!